Dr. Jazz.
Taking the time, I really appreciate it.
Dr.
Oh, it's
Jazz.
my pleasure.
I have you on so many records, and I
Are
have
you?
actually a CD of Walk On, so and
Oh, do you? Oh,
yeah,
wow, that was the first one. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and really love the tunes and the playing, and but I wanted to start this talk by asking you this. I heard a couple of last records you did, and there's a lot of blues and singing in there, like which is kind of a change compared to, let's say, Walk On and those earlier records. Like, how when did you decide to sing actually? And
Well, actually, I sang before I played guitar. When I was
oh,
about 5 years old. I used to sing along with Perry Como record and Frank Sinatra, and my father would take me around. We lived in Detroit then, and my father would take me around to radio stations, and I'd sing a song on the air, which probably sounded terrible, but like cute little kid and stuff. And then I started playing guitar a little later than that, and at the time they it was kind of, I started out, I was a rock and roller, I still am sort of at heart, and um in Detroit is sort of a tough town, and
mm,
if you played guitar, if you're just blasting away at some power chords, you're cool, but if you're singing, it's kind of like you're a sissy or something. So I just stopped singing. I closed my mouth for like a long time, and then about 10 years ago, I decided that I was gonna start again, and now I lived in New York City for 34 years,
mm,
and when I was doing those records, I was sort of really directed by the label, and what they wanted. I wasn't singing then. I was, of course, they let me. I wanted to play real jazz, straight ahead jazz, and they let me do that. So, and I really wasn't singing then, but later on, those records, the last couple records I did, which they're old now too, but they they were sort of more self-directed and self-produced, and also I have not lived in New York for about 8 or 9 years now going on. I lived first back. I grew up half in Virginia and half in Detroit, so I moved back. The weather in Detroit sucks, so I moved back to Virginia, and now I live in near the beach in South Carolina,
okay.
where there are tons of gigs, but there are no gigs for instrumental jazz. So if I just played like I played music on Walk On, which would be great. I just saw there's a video of that, and but I would work maybe 2 times a year,
Yeah.
and singing and doing some blues, and I mix it with classic rock and a little old time country music and soul music too, and so I can work all the time doing that, and then I put my jazz solos in, and they like it. Where if I just started out just playing heavy duty jazz, I wouldn't. It's a good way to draw the audience in, and it's also much more fun than just playing. So I love doing it. So
Well, you
that's
sing
sort of.
amazing also. I mean, I love your voice. It's really bluesy, you have the blues, like it's
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I mean,
uh,
I've gotten better and better, and I'm better now quite a bit than I was on those records. But
mm,
I appreciate that, and I sort of have an obsessive personality, obsessive compulsive personality, and so anything that I really get into, I really get into it hard. And now one of the great things about living in South Carolina is I have a house. I never lived in a house before, except for when I was a little kid. And so when I get back from the gigs, I can practice the things I fucked up, even, not only the playing and singing too, and without disturbing anybody
Anyone?
like
Yeah.
in apartments. So that's good. But thank you. That's I always wanted to, even with those early records. I wasn't playing really outside or anything,
Sure. Yeah.
and sometimes a little bit, but I always wanted to play something that you didn't have to be a complete expert to understand, so that you could, so that, like, just somebody, like, the greatest compliment I've ever received is that somebody comes in and said, "Oh, I've never heard jazz before, but I like what you're doing," or
Mm.
I didn't think I liked jazz, but I like your music. So that, and then, of course, if somebody who really knows what they're talking about says, "Oh, I like it," then that's even better. But I mean, I've always tried to play for the people and not just the critics and not just
Sure.
other musicians.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Yeah, I mean, many times on those gigs, the intricate jazz gigs, it's like four guitarists and maybe two other musician friends on a gig. So that, if you play like
yeah, I mean,
11 or 16 or whatever, like it's like, yeah, okay.
yeah, you have your even when they're well attended,
Yeah,
you have somebody that people really want to hear. You'll have a room full of guys who are music students, and then two bored-looking girlfriends who have agreed to
exactly.
come with their boyfriends in exchange for doing something fun later on after that's over with. So
Yeah. I agree, man. Yeah. But but it's like, I don't know if I'm wrong, but when I listen to your early records, I hear so much like Grant Green or stuff like that, like single lines. Who did you listen to that got you excited for jazz actually, like in the beginning, or improvisation? Was there a moment that you said like, shit, I want to do that? Or
yeah, well, I mean, I really, like I said, I was a rock and roller, and I started up, and I'm a blues player, and I started off by copying Eric Clapton
Hmm,
and BB King, and people like that. And I tried to copy Jimi Hendrix, but in those days you didn't have any video, so I didn't know that he tuned the guitar down to E flat. So I couldn't find the lowest note on my guitar. So I couldn't copy him. I didn't know that if you just take a regular Stratocaster and tune it down a half step and just play all your regular blues shit, it sounds just like Jimi Hendrix. Um, but after that, I really got into the Allman Brothers, and I
hmm.
and I and I because they did the long jams, and I knew every note of every Dwayne Allman and Dickie Betts solo on Allman Brothers Live at the Fillmore East, note for note. I could play it completely
That's a
all the
great
way
record.
through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great record. And then I mean, I had heard some kind of jazz music that I was trying to get into jazz. People were telling me to get into jazz because that's more, a higher form of improvisation and all. And so I really heard I had heard things like Coltrane, late period
Mm.
Coltrane, which I liked the energy of it, but I couldn't really relate to it that much. And I heard Bitches Brew, which I still don't like that. But anyway, I I went to the library and I heard on this Smithsonian collection of jazz. I heard two things that I really loved. First thing was Charlie Parker. Charlie Parker hit me like a ton of bricks. It's still just like the greatest thing I've ever heard. And also on that same collection was was a cut from Lenny Tristano with Warren Marsh and Lee
Oh wow.
Konitz and Billy Bauer on the guitar, and I liked that a lot too. That was sort of a different version of the same thing that Charlie Parker was doing. And later on, one of my first gigs in New York was with Warren Marsh. I was in his
Really?
band for
Oh
three
man.
years.
Are you
Yeah,
kidding me?
so
Wow.
no.
Wow.
So he, that really worked out well. So that was um the first time I just said, man, this is exactly what I want to do. I want to play just like Charlie Parker on the guitar. And then I had a teacher, and this was I was in Richmond, Virginia by that time, and I had a teacher who was this guy who was down in the basement of a music store, and he lived in a trailer and drank a lot of beer, but he was kind of a good. He kind of played he was really into Barney Kessel and Django Reinhardt. They were and Johnny Smith
Mm.
and he had this big he had at the time, we're talking vinyl records, and he had this big you couldn't even find a jazz record anywhere in Richmond at that time. I mean, the big record stores had maybe one bin that just said jazz. It didn't even have any. And I remember I got an Oscar Peterson record, which I really liked, and a Barney Kessel record, which I really liked still. And but my teacher Jerry Fields, he had this big box of jazz guitar records who would he would pass around from all there were about three or four people in Richmond that were students of his, and whoever was the newest student who showed any promise, they got to borrow the records for a while. So so I went over. Jerry said, "Well, man, now you can have the record. You can listen to the records for a while." And and so I went over and picked them up from the last guy that had them, and he was playing along with them, and he played much better than I did at the time. And I said, "Oh man, you're great." And so I got the box of records and I took them home. And after a few weeks, Jerry asked me. He said, and there was a record in there called Green Street by Grant Green,
Yeah.
where it's just a trio with no piano and really bare bones, stripped down. And he plays maybe two chords on the whole record.
Exactly.
All the rest is lines and
Yep.
maybe third. And and I like that the best of any of the records. And so Jerry, I went back to my teacher, and he said, "Well, man, is there any records in there that you really liked?" And I said, "Yeah, I like the Grant Green record." And he goes, "Well, you can have that one because I don't like it."
Oh wow.
And so I still have it. I have it in the other room now.
Beautiful.
So that record, yeah, I didn't copy all of the solos, but I've listened to it incessantly, and so that was, and then now I have a bunch of other Grant Green
Oh
records, and
man.
I,
Yeah.
I like Grant Green very much.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
The single lines, man. He did. It's just like it's so simple in a way. Yeah. It's so good. It's like
Oh
so
yeah,
different than Wes, let's say, and but I love what he did. Yeah. Beautiful playing.
yeah. Pardon me 1 second.
Oh, sure. No worries.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. I had my gig last night with a guy down here named Leroy Harper, who used to play with James Brown, and so we're rocking out, and I'm singing like the letter and Unchain My Heart and all kind of shit like that. So yelling and screaming while there's like 70-year-old women with tattoos and nose rings and shit and leather jackets on. That's kind of the scene in South Carolina.
Oh man. That's good. I love that. Amazing. You mentioned War Mars before. Like, when did you move to New York, actually? And why did you? I mean, why? It's in a way obvious, but how come you decided to move to New York? What was the main trigger?
Well, after I was after it took me. I went to the University of Miami
Oh, okay.
I started in 1975, so I was right after um, Pat Metheny
And
and
Jocko and
Jocko
okay.
Pastorius and Hiram Bullock and a bunch of people like that, and so they were all, they had all gone to New York, and there, New York was sort of the among the teachers and all. New York was sort of like the Holy Grail. That's where you try to go to like the Frank Sinatra song to, if I can make it there, I can make it anywhere. And so after I graduated, it took me 6 years to graduate. I was in and out, and I was back in Richmond, and I had gigs 6 nights a week, a lot
Wow.
of times there at the time, because they just had some kind of scene happening, and you didn't have to be that good, so I could work, there weren't that many people, so musicians, so I had done that, and after I graduated, I just went to New York um in the summer of 1981. I knew one
Wow.
person there, uh, bass player named Nat Reeves, who's
Oh,
he's on
really? Oh, yeah, sure. I love that. He played with Kenny
he
Garrett and all those guys. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been my best friend since like 1977, and we used to play gigs together all the time in
Really?
Richmond. We never played one set where we were straight. We were always, well, anyway, that's another part of the story. But so anyway, so I knew Nat, and I moved to New York, and just I started playing on the street, and
Oh,
I played on the street for a couple of years, and I remember from that, I met some really good musicians, like Vincent Herring was playing on the street,
mm,
and this trumpet player Brian Lynch, and
yeah.
lots of good kids, and lots of not so good ones too. But I remember the first time my parents came to visit me in New York, and we were walking around Manhattan, and uh, and 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 we see some guys playing on the street, and my father goes, "Oh, Randy, I hope you never have to do anything like that." And and so we passed by them, and they all go, "Oh, hey, Randy, how you doing?" So, but it was a good experience. And then I played a little tiny bit with the organ player Jack McDuff.
Oh, really? How was
Um,
that? I mean,
one of
he
my
was famous
first
for
gigs.
being a tough guy, right?
He was just like kind of yeah, he is a really interesting guy. I don't know how much I should say about him now,
Oh, how
after
much you
he's
want,
dead.
man? But it's big shoes you stepped in. It's like George Benson. I mean, Grant Green. I think everyone played with him, right? Like,
Yeah, lots of other people too that are not so famous but are also really great. So I played with him, and I ended up making a record after I'd actually played with them a couple of years after that. I'm on one half of one record called Another Real
oh
Good
yeah.
One, which got this picture of this beautiful woman with like leather boots on, who you just wish would step on you, and and she's smoking a cigarette from a long cigarette holder. It doesn't sound that bad. I mean, McDuff was driving me crazy on the session. He was yelling at me,
Oh
everybody, so
man.
much that I remember my hands were shaking, and it was also at Rudy Van Gelder's, and Rudy Van Gelder was a really difficult person. Also, I made lots. That Walk On is at Rudy Van Gelder's, and
Mm.
a bunch of my early ones as a leader are there. But to me, he was difficult. He was good if you were like a junkie or something.
Yeah.
He'd keep you in line. But for me, who I'm sort of like a high strung, guy that's basically straight, on a record date. So, I need somebody to calm me down, not somebody to make me more excited. So anyway, I did that, and then I I also had this gig playing the after hours session at the Blue Note, and it was at the time it was a jam session, but I was the entire rhythm section. It was the gig was just me and a saxophone player, a woman named Grace Zilka, and I don't know whatever happened to her, but anyway, we would play from whenever the group stopped, the main group stopped, and until like 3 in the morning,
Wow.
and whoever wanted to come and play with us would play, could just come in and play. So, but the good part of it, what the better part of it was, I got to get in free and hear who was ever was playing there. So I mean, I heard Tal Farlow for free, Oscar Peterson,
Right.
all kinds of
The
great
greats.
stuff, and one week, uh, it was Al Cohn and Zoot Sims playing there, and and of course I went to hear that. I loved them, and Warren Marsh was in the audience, and he stayed and listened to Grace and I play for a little while afterwards, and he told me he liked my playing, and I should come up and visit him sometime. He lived in a residential hotel, up at like Broadway and 86th Street or something, called Breton Hall, which a lot of musicians lived there. Benny Green lived there. A bunch of other people that I knew lived there, but he lived in there in a room, rented room. You had to go down the hall to the bathroom. And he told me to come up there. So we made it the time I was supposed to come up. And meanwhile, I started to go hear him, and I decided that of anybody I'd heard, this was the person that I wanted to play with the most. I loved the way he played so much, and and I really wanted to play with him. So, and I also had heard that he loved to smoke weed so much. He loved weed so much. So, so anyway, I talked to him, and he said, well, come up, next Wednesday or whatever. So I said, well, I got to get ready for this. So the first thing I did was, I had this record, Lee Konitz and Warren Marsh, live with just a bass and drums, and they played Star Eyes, and he played this incredible solo on Star Eyes. So I transcribed the solo and wrote it all out, and it was so hard. It had all this stuff over the bar line, sixes and weird groupings, that I had to have a saxophone player friend of mine help me, how to write it out, but I did it. And then I got like the best weed I could find anywhere, and rolled it up into about four really nice joints. So so then I go up and see him, and I said, Warren, I transcribed this solo of yours on Star Eyes. Would you check it for me and see if it's right? And so, I brought it's on a record, so we put the record on, it's spinning around, and he goes, yeah, man. Yeah, Randy. Good, man. That's right. Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, yeah, man. Good work, Randy. And I said, oh, well, thank you. And then I said, well, I heard you like to smoke weed, so I brought you some joints. So he goes, well, I've been trying to quit for a while, so but I feel like now I'm strong and healthy, and I'm really ready for some. And I said, well, I don't want to make you do anything you don't, if you're trying to quit, I don't want to get you started again or anything. And he goes, well, no, it's been a while now, and I think my lungs have really cleared out, and I'm feeling like I'm really ready to smoke again. And and he goes, I said, well, okay, how long has it been? And it says the bandwidth is low. Are you still, you're still there?
We're
Okay.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I said, well, he said, well, I feel like I'm really ready for some now. And I said, well, how long has it been since you quit? And he goes, oh, well, it's been about 3 days now. And that's the longest I've gone since 1980. No, since 1947.
Oh
That's
yeah,
the
okay.
longest.
Right.
And that was like 1982, So we smoked, and then he goes, uh um he goes, well, I'd really like to try playing with you sometime. And he had this gig at this place called the West End Cafe, which I think is still there. It's up,
Mm.
but they don't have live jazz anymore. It's kind of up near Smoke there on like Broadway, up near Columbia there somewhere. And a little bit north of Smoke on the same side.
Mm.
And he had like a 10-day gig there. So he said, I'm gonna give you 3 nights to play. And then his regular guitar player, he liked guitar, so it was always a pianoless quartet. And his regular guitar player was a really good friend of mine. And who was this? And is a good player. It was a guy named Bob Ward from Texas at the time. And he was a buddy of mine. So it was, I thought maybe this would be awkward or something, but this is New York shit, so he goes, and Bob is going to do 4 nights, and then I've got this other guy who's going to do 3 nights, one of his students, and whoever's the best, they're going to be the guitar player in my band.
Oh
So
wow, man, that
so
sounds.
now, yeah, so now Bob Ward, my buddy, who is my competition, also, he is such a mensch that he goes, like, he gave me all the charts to all the tunes, and I copied them. He said, here, you can have it, and if Warren likes you better, you got the gig, it's okay,
Mm.
so I copied all, it was like, I don't know, 40 standards or something, and I memorized all of
Wow.
them, everything, memorized them all. And so when we got on the bandstand, Warren goes, well, Randy, did you get a chance to look at any of that music there? Did you see any of it? And I said, yeah, I looked at it. He goes, did you learn any of them? And I said, yeah, I learned all of them. He goes, really, all of them? And I said, yeah, call them out. Call anything you want. Call it out. I'll play it. And he did. He called them out, and I played it. And so at the end of the gig, at the end of the week, he goes, you got the gig. And I stayed with him for about well, off and on for 3 years,
Wow.
and that was the time. If he had like a gig where he needed more famous people, like at the Vanguard, he'd use Hank Jones and George Mraz instead of us. But I played a lot of gigs with him at the West End, and mostly in some other places. And then he'd go to Boston, and he'd have Joe Cohn on the guitar.
Wow. Amazing.
Joe Cohn is another friend of mine now. I love Joe,
Yeah.
but at the time, Warren he'd come back and he'd go, man, Joe Cohn. I played with Joe Cohn this weekend in Boston. He's really good, And I'd go, yeah, is he really good? And he said, yeah, when you play, you really know how to take your time. But I don't think Joe Cohn needs to take his time. So then I'd go back and practice, harder and harder. So he was motivating me. So
That's
so
amazing.
that was I learned so much from him, and I had a cassette recorder, which I still have the tapes from, and I would bring it up there, and he would play those Lenny Tristano lines really slowly
Oh
to the.
man. Okay.
I'd go home and learn it, and then I'd practice it over and over and over, and and then we'd play the lines together, and he'd play like a third away, like the Lenny. Oh, this was incredible, So
Man.
I learned a tremendous amount from him. Yeah.
Wow. Those are like treasures there you have, like the cassette tapes and stuff. You should digitalize that or something like that. I mean, that's uh
Yeah,
good stuff.
I have some that are my son is like a computer genius. He really is. He's a coder for Google, and I have some of those tapes that he found in my old apartment in New
Mm.
York, which he has the lease now, but some of them were broadcast on WKCR live ones from the West End, and he digitized those. So I have
Oh, okay.
those. And I do have the practice ones. I don't know. I think they're either in New York or I have some of them in the closet right there.
Amazing.
But yeah, the people have contacted me over the years that a few times that said, "Oh, we're going to write a biography of Warren Marsh, and or we want to release those broadcast tapes as a record." And I don't know whatever happens. It's difficult to do things like that. So,
Sure. Yeah.
but I'm happy that I was able to be a part of it.
Oh man, that's one of the greats, right? He was, I mean, and
Yeah, he was.
what a way to learn. I mean,
Yeah,
that's it, old school, really. Amazing. Well, uh,
yeah.
I wanted to ask you also, how did you end up with playing with Joey DiFrancesco, actually? Because I listened to that one record I have, the Champ, with you, with him, and you played with him for some time, right? Or what's your story? What was your story with Joey?
Well, my story with Joey was I played with him some at gigs. I didn't play with him as much as Paul Ballenbach or
Yeah.
one of those guys, but I did play some with him, and he played with me a bunch of times. And uh, and actually, I met him through Houston Person.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's because so Houston. Actually, I used to play all the time at this club up in Harlem called the Baby Grand with this singer, this woman who played the drums and sang named Ella Griffin, and she was good friends with Etta Jones. So
yeah.
Etta would come in there all the time, and I became really good friends with Etta Jones. She
Oh,
was
really? Wow.
Yeah, we were really one of my best friends, and she kind of introduced me to Houston, and was Houston and Etta were the ones who got me the record deal with that Walk On is
Yeah,
on with Muse,
Muse.
Joe
Yeah.
Fields, and that stuff. But um, after that, I played on a couple of Etta's records, and then Houston wanted me to play on one of his records, and that's when I met Joey
Joey. Oh
DiFrancesco.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, because Joey was like 17 at the time. The record is called The Party.
Party.
There's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
couple of them.
I have the
The
other one. Why
Party,
not?
yeah,
Why not? I have, I think, from
yeah.
Houston. Yeah. Yeah.
Why Not actually came out before The Party, but The
Okay.
Party was before Why Not, and it. I mean, Joey was like 17 at the time. His father had to drive him drove him up from Philadelphia to Rudy Van Gelder's to the session. And I said, I thought, I'd already played with McDuff and a bunch of the other organ players. And I thought, oh, maybe this kid will be pretty good. But man, he was like the best organ player I'd ever played with then. I mean, I think maybe then he was better than he was later. I don't know, but he
Hmm.
was fucking great,
Yeah, he was on
And
fire. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, just really everything that you'd want. I mean, incredible time, incredible chops. I mean, just the also the ability to play the exact right thing at the right time where it makes the music happen. I mean, just amazing. And and so that was my first experience with him making a couple of those records, and then we started to have a relationship. I would play with him, and he played on I think t maybe two or three of my records.
Yeah,
One
riding the curve, and yeah, I have that.
Riding the Curve, yeah,
Yeah, that's a nice record.
with John, yeah, and we had that band, Idris Muhammad
Yeah,
and Joey and Johnny Griffin. We had done a tour in Spain a few months before
really.
that.
Oh
Yeah,
man, how was that like?
and it was great. Johnny Griffin to me, like, I was totally in awe of him, but he was so nice to me. It was amazing. I remember it was my birthday during the tour. My birthday is December 5th, and it was somehow that was in the tour. I don't remember which one it was, but on the day of my birthday, in the hotel, Johnny, the phone rings, and Johnny, I pick it up, and it's Johnny, and he goes, "You have a corkscrew?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I have a corkscrew. Who the fuck do you think you're dealing with?" So he goes, "All right, I'll be right over." So he comes over and knocks on the door, and he has this really nice bottle of French wine, and he said, "Oh, this is for your birthday. Let's have a drink." And we
Beautiful, man.
did. He was just wonderful, and the tour was great, and I think Idris Muhammad
Oh,
in many ways is the greatest drummer I ever played with, and
he's a
I've played with
monster.
a
He was a
lot of
monster.
great
Yeah,
drummers. Yeah,
yeah.
so that was great. And then Joey, before that, he played on this other record called In Accord, which was I think it was a Muse or a High Note. They're the same thing, but and that was with Mickey Roker and Joey, and Eric Alexander is on half of it. So, and that's I like that record a lot. That's
Yeah,
you can find some of that on YouTube, and
yeah.
I don't play the whole thing, but it's I think that I loved Mickey Roker too. I used to play with him all the time in
Oh,
Philadelphia. I'd go down to Philly and play, and the rhythm section would be Mickey Roker on drums, Shirley Scott on piano, and Arthur Harper on the bass, who had played with Wes, a lot. And I'm supposed to be the band leader, and I'm going like, Jesus Christ, what am I doing here? These guys are all so much better than I am. But it was really really fun. Mickey was incredibly great, and Shirley was also one
yeah.
of the nicest people I'd ever met, and Arthur would always arrive at the gig drunk as a bitch, man. He'd be drunk, and then he'd play himself sober after, as the night went on, he would get more sober and he'd get better and better.
Amazing, man. Oh.
Different than these
Well,
days.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
How did you end up with all these bands? Because when I look at Walk On, it's like,
Uh,
Ray Drummond and Kenny Washington, and then Mickey Roker you mentioned, and Idris. Like, did you decide for these groups, or like did the label, or how did you end up with those bands actually?
well, Houston was the producer, Houston person, and some of those all through that period, like for that record, he got Ray Drummond to play on it,
Yeah,
and Kenny Washington, and
amazing.
and I knew Benny Green before, but Houston kind of hooked that up too. And so that one was, and they wanted you to record not with your buddies. They wanted some name people on it, so that maybe the jazz fans would recognize the names, and they didn't know you. So, but later on, I mean, then as it progressed, I got to know more people myself, and so the one Mickey Roker, I met him, and I brought him into it, but and the one for the riding the curve one I
Hmm.
produced. It wasn't a production. But I had done that tour and I'd met Idris and Johnny and then I knew Joey from before, so I kind of hooked that up. So it as it went along, I kind of had a little
Yeah.
more control over it, Yeah.
Mm. Was it tough for you in the beginning, becoming a band leader? I mean, like if you can look back at Walk On and those records, I mean,
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess at first, I mean, I was always a side man and a band leader. I
okay.
mean, as you probably know, I played with Lou Donaldson for 18 years, and so I was a
I wanted
side
to ask
man.
you, yeah, about Lou, yeah.
Yeah, I was the side man and the band leader. So those records I would do, and I would so I was so I kind of saw it from both sides. So I didn't a lot of times, even when I was doing those records, I was playing a lot of gigs with Lou or with Houston or other people as well. And I've sort of been sort of a journeyman in New York too, doing weddings and restaurants and all kinds of shit, because I needed the money. So I mean, I never thought of myself as like now I'm a band leader and now
It's
I'm
a
a
gig.
side man.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah. But I'm sure grateful that I had a chance to do all those records as a band leader, So
Mm. What about writing music? I mean, you've written also quite some music for those records. Like, how did that go? Like, when did you start writing those
oh
things?
yeah, well I've always written
Mm.
done some writing, and I wouldn't say I'm a serious writer like Chick Corea or something like that. I just bang out a couple little ditties, and usually I kind of write. I have about two or three songs that I write over and over again, the same thing basically, but slightly differently. But I mean, I have a catalog now
Yeah.
with EMI of about 40 or 50 tunes, and I started writing songs with lyrics too, which I have, one or two of them are on those later records, but I have a few of those too, and I think that's getting better too. So that's always just been a lot of fun for me, and but the originals on those records, like Walk On,
Yeah.
it was kind of like I I uh, I realized that, uh-oh, I got a record date coming up, and if I just do all standards, I won't get any royalties for anything. So I better have a couple of originals too. And Houston encouraged me also to write. He goes, "Man, you write pretty good." So like I said, I'm not really what you'd call a serious composer, but that's sort of part of it too,
Mm.
and writing, and I like doing that, and I'm working on a couple of songs right now.
Beautiful. Yeah. How was Lou like, Donaldson, for you? I mean, playing with him.
Yeah, it was like being in a family. It was
Mm.
like being in a family with all of the uh, all of the good parts and the bad parts of being in a family. So I just got a call from the phone rang, and he goes, "Yeah, this is Lou Donaldson. Is this Randy Johnston?" And that's how he talked, and I said, "Yeah, it is." And he hired me to go to Europe for a three week tour,
Oh,
and
wow, man.
because Peter Bernstein was the guitar player, and he loved Peter. I like Peter too, very good,
Yeah.
and but Peter had a better gig, so he didn't want to make the tour. So I made the tour, and it just and basically I ended up staying with them for 18 years. After that, first the band was for about the first 10 years, it was Lonnie Smith on organ
No.
and usually Fukushi Tainaka on the drums, who is also one of the best drummers I've ever played with. He's incredible. And for swing or bebop or
Mhm.
anything, just the greatest. But and so we'd ride together in the car all the time and take the planes together and really get on each other's nerves a lot of times, but then we loved each other too. I mean, I remember like we'd go to check in at the hotel in someplace in Europe, and there'd be like Lou was there, with his little hat on, and then Lonnie has got a turban on, and the big, and then in Fukushi's Japanese, he's got a Yankees hat on, and then there's me, and they would go, "Oh, wow, that is really amazing. One of each, and and we'd say, "Yeah, put us at the opposite ends of the hotel. Don't give us rooms right next to each other because we all hate each other." So, but I mean, it was great, and it got to be like so Lou's show was like a really tight thing, tight like almost like a piece of classical music, the whole
Mhm.
set, not
Yeah.
I mean this, a lot of times a lot of the same songs and the same jokes. I was like the straight man. Lou would tell the jokes and I would be the foil for him, that was a lot of fun for me. And I mean it was great, and I learned a tremendous amount from both Lou and Lonnie and
Yeah.
Fuku. Although it wasn't about chords and polyrhythms and stuff like the stuff that I learned from Warren Marsh. It was different things, much different things. But it was amazing. I mean, not too many people get to be in a
Wow.
great band like that for so long, and Lou was very, very loyal. So once he liked you, it wouldn't be like some other people. They have their, now we have our New Orleans project, and now we
Mhm.
have, our outside project. Now we have our organ trio. It wasn't like that at all. It was the same thing all the time. Lou had the same saxophone. He wore the same suit with the same tie,
Mhm.
and he played the same solos a lot of times. He wanted everything to be the same. So once and toward the end, sometimes I would even try to get him to fire me. I would um and he wouldn't do it. He'd get mad. We'd have like crazy arguments, like screaming at each other, and he still wouldn't fire me. So and I still, he's still alive. He's exactly 30 years older, 30 years and a month older than I am. And I'm 67, which is really, sucks, but he's 97. And I talked to him the other
Wow.
day for like 20 minutes. He's still around. So that's a
That's
blessing, it's
yeah,
great.
incredible. Wow. No, I mean I can imagine that. I can imagine those check-ins now. Actually seeing you guys. That's hilarious, but cool. But
Yeah. Yeah. I think he
amazing, man.
liked that. He liked that, I think to have, and I mean, it just, yeah, it was a great experience. I have a picture of let's see. I have a picture here of the band,
Oh man, yeah,
which you see
yeah,
that's
beautiful,
Lonnie and Lou and Fukushi and
amazing.
I, and that's in Toronto about around about 1997 or something, 6 or 7 or something like that. So,
Beautiful, man.
and I have that yeah.
Fantastic. Wow. Uh, Randy, I wanted to ask you also, like you said you play a lot of gigs, but what's for this year? Do you have like a new record coming up also in the future or in the upcoming months, or what's the story there?
I don't. Maybe you could encourage me to do one. I don't really see. I'm not sure of the point of making a record
Yeah, I know what you
anymore.
mean. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Because I don't see. I don't know if people are really interested in albums that much anymore. I mean, it seems like people's attention span is so limited now, and so what I've been doing in recent years is kind of working on my YouTube channel more than thinking about audio recordings, and I have a bunch of stuff up on that now, which is there's actually dozens of videos, and usually I'll take my it sounds crazy, but I'll take my iPad and video it and the whole gig, and I'll usually get one or two songs that I think are good enough to that I like enough to put up.
Yeah.
And I just recently did a tour in Japan, and I have several good ones up from that. So I've been working on that more. There are here in Myrtle Beach, there are about 3 or 4 people that have studios that have actually offered me free studio time to do a record, but I don't know exactly what I want to do. And I mean, the musicians here, it's not like New York. I don't have like a huge
Yeah.
choice of I don't know exactly what I want to do. So please tell me, do another record, and maybe I'll
Do
do
another
it.
record. No, and I love the stuff that you did, like it's that's why I wanted to talk to you, because I listen to your music a lot these days just to get in the mood a little. And it's you're one of the guys who continued, like you said, Grant Green's heritage, at least, and that story. I love that. It's beautiful lines that you've played, and so yeah,
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah.
would be nice to hear you in a context like that again. So, but I know what you mean about the records. Yeah, it's terrible, man. It's I'm the same. I do a record. I did a record now, and kind of it's like, yeah, okay. So what's the purpose of it? What's the idea of? Yeah, I
Well,
think
I'd like to hear it. Can you send it to me?
I will. I will definitely. Yeah, it's
Yeah, I would love to hear it.
yeah, I will definitely. But
Yeah, but I mean, there are yeah, there are there are people here that there's a couple of guys I know that have successful careers doing not jazz, but doing like sort of original rhythm and blues, rock and roll kind of stuff, and they still put out CDs and everything, and they have T-shirts and all kind of shit
mm,
like that. They sell
yeah,
at the gigs. So I think if it's done in the right way, it could be possible. I just don't know. Um, I don't know exactly. I'm thinking about it, but I don't know exactly which direction to go with it right
yeah,
now. So
yeah. I can. Yeah,
yeah.
it's heavy. I mean, it's yeah, completely screwed up the business is and the audience, the listening at least. It's bizarre times actually. But yeah,
It's pretty bizarre, yeah,
that's
yeah.
where we are.
But I mean, every time is bizarre, I think. I mean, back in, as far back as I go, and I mean, it was always bizarre in some way. And I mean, I played with lots of older musicians, and I knew I was friends with lots of older musicians. And they told me that it was bizarre back then too. So
Yeah.
I mean, I was good friends with Mundell Lowe. Do you know the
Really? Oh,
guitar player
sure. Of
Mundell
course.
Lowe?
Really? Oh, wow,
Yeah, I was
man.
really good friends with Mundell. He's a lovely man and a fellow Southerner, and so he told me that he used to hang out with Charlie Parker a lot, and that I mean, there's a record that I had that was made on I still have it in the other room. I still have all my vinyls, and a record that called Bird is Free, which was made by somebody on a wire recording, so it sounds like the playing is so fucking great. And I'd had that record, and he told me that they made that at a benefit for the Communist Party in New York in 1950. And at the time, the Communist Party was pretty powerful. They had a newspaper in New York and all, and they he said that when they were on the way to the gig, the cops were following them. They had a tail on them, so they had to keep driving around the block different ways to get to the gig to lose the cops, so they wouldn't know where the thing was. And they finally did it, and they started playing, and they played pretty much to the end of the night. But then the police raided the place, and they had to like leave out the back door and leave all the instruments in the in the place and come back and get them later. So if it wasn't, one thing, it was another, and then also I was really good friends with Larry Coryell. Larry Coryell
Really?
was
Wow.
Yes,
Yeah.
Larry Coryell was and is one of my all-time heroes on the guitar, and also I became really, really close friends with him, and I played some gigs toward the end, not that long ago, with he had like a four guitar group, and it'd be Jack Wilkins, Vic
Wow.
Juris, Joe Bone was in it sometimes. I was in it. It kind of rotated, but I played some of those gigs together
Yeah.
with Larry, and I loved Larry so much, and he's a really funny guy and really really bright, entertaining guy, and so he told me weird stories from the 60s, so that I didn't know. So it's always been, if it ain't one thing, it's something else that's weird. So
Yeah. I guess being a musician, right? Or a jazz musician, that comes along with it almost.
yeah, just
It's
just being alive in the world, so.
exactly. But yeah, man, Randy, what is it today? Tuesday. I leave you a nice Tuesday afternoon slowly. So, and here I'll go to bed slowly. So, but thanks for sharing some of these thoughts. I really
Sorry, say that again. I broke up a little bit.
no, I'm saying that thanks for sharing some of these stories and stuff. Really appreciate it. It was nice
Oh,
to hear
you're
you talk.
welcome.
Beautiful. And
You're welcome.
otherwise,
You're totally welcome, Samo. And
oh yeah, sorry, I wanted to tell you, if you're ever going to be in Europe, drop me a line,
yeah,
or if you have plans.
where are you from? I should have asked you that.
I'm in Slovenia, which is like I live 2 hours south of Vienna. Did you get the idea? Like near Budapest.
Oh, you
Budapest.
do?
Yeah, Vienna, Zagreb, kind of there.
Oh, you do? Oh
Yeah.
man, I want to go to Budapest. I've been to Vienna a bunch of times, but not for a while. But I want to. Budapest is one place I've always wanted to go. Buddha
Yeah,
and
Budapest.
Pest, right? So
Exactly. Yeah.
so uh, uh, damn, you think maybe we could hook up some gigs together or something
Oh
there?
man, would be nice. Yeah. I mean, I'm in Slovenia now, so, but in Slovenia it's quite bad gig-wise. It's like it's really after COVID, it's gotten really worse. I mean, especially paid gigs. It's like unless you have a tour
Oh
together,
yeah,
like maybe
yeah.
that
But
it works.
I mean, so are you there now? Are you in?
I'm
Is it so? Are you in New York? Or
no, I'm in Slovenia now in
are
Europe.
you in Slovenia now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's nice,
Oh,
I
okay,
love it here.
okay.
So
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't know why I thought you were in New York,
Yeah, because I wrote to you about
but
New
I
York
mean,
time, I think so. Yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah, because you said about the New York
Yeah.
time. Yeah, all right. Okay. So it's actually for you now it's like 10:30 or
Yeah,
10 or
yeah, yeah.
9:30, right?
9:30. Yeah. So,
Or I mean, yeah, yeah, no, no, not nine, uh 21, right?
yeah,
21:30 something, right?
exactly.
Do you use military time?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, sure,
All right.
sure.
Well,
Yeah.
man, I'm sorry I can't speak your language and you had to speak mine, but
Oh,
you do
come
it very
on.
well, so.
No, but thanks again, man, for sharing. And but let's stay in touch. And if if we have a guest room here in our house, if you want to come, Hank, let
Yeah, I mean, I do a
let me
lot of
know.
things now. I have one son. And that's all I have, and a lot of things I had to do, even like staying with Lou Donaldson as long as I did. I loved Lou, but part of it was because I needed the money for David's school, and I
Sure.
needed it for and now I don't. He makes as much money now in one year as I did in my 5 best years ever.
Sure.
So I don't have to worry about him. So now I do a lot of things that are not really as much for the money.
Exactly. Yeah.
So maybe sometime this is good. It puts it in my mind, and
Yeah. Come on.
because that's a place I love to travel, and that's a place that I've never. I think I think one time took a plane we drove from Vienna down somewhere like something close to there, but I just really like to see that. So
Yeah, it's a beautiful.
we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, let's keep in touch, man. Definitely. We live in a wine region, so that's a good sign. So
Okay. All right.
Cool, man. Randy, I'll send you a link when this is out, and then we can share it and everything. So
Okay, Samo. Thank
cool,
you, and
man. Thank
I'm
you.
looking forward to hearing your music also.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. I'll send you a link or two. So thank you, sir. Bye.
Dr. Jazz.